This isn't any regular heat. This is nuclear heat. Live from the 93.7 The Ticket studios in the heart of Lincoln, America. Bringing you the latest from the Square Circle on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com. Here is your host, Jake Bakovic.
Yes, happy to be with you here on another edition of Nuclear Heat on 93.7 The Ticket, our weekly source of wrestling, weekly coverage of the happenings in WWE. It's fun. You know, we talk a lot of wrestling here on 93.7 The Ticket. I just got done going through the Tuesdays. If you haven't listened on Tuesdays, the Adam Carricker on The Ticket, he discusses wrestling topics, more kind of large, wide-ranging wrestling topics with DP, and so they had a list of top 25 wrestlers that they had today. They don't always get through all the lists. It's usually kind of a two-show event because they like to talk about the wrestlers and add a lot of context in there. So tune into that. I know Hosta Breezy and DP also on Sundays get some wrestling talk going. So we'd like to share our wrestling love here on Nuclear Heat on 93.7 The Ticket. But we, in fact, do this show every week. And talk WWE wrestling. It's the most latest events. It's SmackDown. It's Raw in review. And if we get lucky, a premium live event, or at least we're usually building up to that. And I wanted to say this, Augie, as I bring in Augie Pena, my Nuclear Heat contributor, as well as tag team partner. We have surpassed the year mark. Nuclear Heat is over a year old. So congratulations to us. I'll admit it hasn't run every week with the sports calendar, with things that happen in our lives. Of course, we have not, we weren't able to keep up 52 weeks of the year, but we got a lot of them. And if you like pro wrestling, you talk about like thinking of watching weekly wrestling, we'd encourage you to join in with us.
That's awesome. A year went by really fast.
That's right.
It's been fun. It's something I do look forward to every week, just discussing it, with you and being able to talk and just kind of give our opinions on the happenings of what's going on with, wrestling in the WWE.
Yeah, and it's been, I think the wrestling's been really good, as we like to say, over the last couple of months. I mean, really, there's a bit of a drop off after WrestleMania that usually happens, and then they start to get the builds going. And of course, they are now building toward Bash in Berlin. And if you haven't been following along with WWE as well, they've been going around, and a lot of their premium live events are around the world. They're kind of making a world tour, more kind of the big shows overseas, and these overseas crowds love it. They go crazy because obviously they don't, here in Lincoln and even Omaha, it seems like once or twice a year you get a chance to go see the WWE. If you're in, Berlin, it might be every couple of years. So they're going to be excited for that. I think they've set up the card pretty well as they're starting to put the matches together. But I will admit, this week in wrestling, while there were some exciting events that went on, it kind of is a drop off from the post premium live event week that we had before, or just kind of the SummerSlam. I think you kind of get a post SummerSlam gloom as well after the post WrestleMania one that I was talking about.
Yeah, I'd agree. There, like you said, there are a couple storylines that are still good on there, but it mainly just feels like the before SmackDown or SummerSlam, where we were kind of talking about it. A really big dip. But they're cooking some storylines. Some of these storylines are still phenomenal. They're still fun. The runs, they're kind of giving us I complained last week because I think I said I wanted the Judgment Day, like that storyline to kind of open Raw. Mm-hmm. They did that this year or this week, and I feel like that segment lasted a while, right? Like because it went from the opening to kind of that. So some good things there. With that, and I thought there was some good wrestling as well, on TV, not just the storylines, kind of just them talking, but some pretty good matches that were put on.
Yeah, and it's I mean, wrestling right now, Raw and SmackDown are both kind of or especially the overwhelming storyline is about some of the more dominant factions that we've seen in recent times, and them kind of breaking up. The bloodline is so past, such a long story at this point. That if you're not caught up on it, I'm not going to waste your time because, all the members are different than they were a few months ago. So it can be kind of difficult to keep up with. But Judgment Day is kind of in this fresh breaking up period. And I think it's a little bit weird, even just watching a Damian Priest against Dominic. It just doesn't look right. My mind is taught to believe that's his brother. He's going to be helping him out. So it's kind of fun to kind of go through that. I think, if you've been a big fan of Judgment Day and they've been writing that faction for the last couple of years, this is the payoff point. So you're definitely intrigued, and things are going on there. Bloodline again, with the return of Roman Reigns, you could just feel it and see it, right? It's one of those things. I've talked about it before when Roman Reigns, even when I didn't really care for his character, he wasn't as over, but when he had to go away for leukemia for a while, you could just feel it. It was like they miss Roman Reigns. And I think SmackDown has been missing Roman Reigns. Cody's there. Hopefully you would hope the whole plan was for him to get the rub off of Roman Reigns. And it's been a 2-year plan. So hopefully it worked out. But I think there is certainly something to him coming back. Before we dive into Raw and SmackDown specifically, a couple of news items that I wanted to get to. One thing that is new as far as today, here on Tuesday, Randy Orton confirms a 5-year WWE contract extension now with Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful. So he spoke to him. They confirmed a 5-year contract extension for Randy Orton, who is 44 years old and has 14 titles, chasing Triple H at 15, and then, of course, chasing John Cena and Ric Flair just above them. So it is interesting. It is notable. 5 years. This is a big celebration for me, because I remember about maybe a year ago at this time, there was very real concerns about his back, and maybe we've seen kind of the last of Randy. Maybe he'll come in and take a bump, but obviously right now he's fully in the storylines, and even has a chance at Bash at Berlin to tie Triple H's record, which isn't a record, but tie Triple H with 15 world championships. I don't think that's necessarily going to happen, but it is obviously great news. I mean, talk about somebody we're going to miss when they're gone. Randy Orton is just over in every crowd that he goes to. People singing along to his music, and he's just such a good wrestler. It is great news to me as a WWE fan to say, okay, we've got Randy locked in.
Oh, 100%. And honestly, I know they have the storyline with him and Gunther right now, but they set up, something between possibly him and Cody, going for that title too. So they could give it to him. I mean, you look at it, John Cena, left, and gonna tie this in, but just kind of, Randy, as you said, is 44. John Cena, who's one title away from breaking it, he left. Randy's literally been with the WWE since he's been 20, like around 24 years or something like that. So if anyone's kind of deserving of, getting up there or getting close to it, next to Cena, I think it's got to be Randy, because, carrying the company at times on his back. And I was super excited for this too. I'm glad, he's still young. He's still fresh. I mean, I think the reports are he's almost 300 pounds right now, wow. Like muscle wise. I mean, the guy's like 6'6", 6'5", 300 pounds. That's a beast. That's massive. And if he can keep up, the storylines, they got him as a baby face right now. I'd kind of like him to maybe go back to being a heel. I think that's when he's at his best. But yeah, excited, 5 more years of Randy Orton, as long as, his back holds up and, he doesn't take any more of those massive bumps, going to 49, that puts us at what, 29, 2029. That's, I'd be happy with that, good 5 more years.
Plus then he's just going to want to get to 2030 just to say he did. So maybe it's basically 6 years.
That's true. And, these WWE stars, we talked about it, like keep going back to the John Cena thing. They never really retire from the ring, WrestleMania brings them out, SummerSlam, they realize, they can live off their names for a little bit. They get a good payday. When that time comes, he won't be a full-time performer, but, they never truly retire until, they're done.
The end,
until the end there. So,
yeah. So good news there. Also intriguing news here. Bobby Lashley has confirmed a boxing fight in Las Vegas. Of course, his WWE contract is in the air. There's been reports the last couple of weeks about what he's doing there, but he has went on an appearance with the laboratory with Plaz and confirmed that he is going to have a boxing match in Vegas. Remember his MMA record. He's got a pretty good MMA record of 15-2. He decided to return to WWE because he basically said there's just a lot more money to be made there. And it probably hurts, helps that you're not just getting punched in the face or, actually beat up in a ring, in a match. But any interest in, would you be interested in Bobby Lashley boxing? I think that's a little bit surprising. Of course, I mentioned his MMA record. You go back to Brock Lesnar and what he was able to do in the UFC. I always like them crossing over. I don't know if I'd buy specifically a pay-per-view with Bobby Lashley boxing. I feel like boxing takes away a little bit of what, the mass that he has to offer. I think UFC works out a little better for him. MMA.
Yeah, because he's I forget, he's more of a karate guy, right? Which I mean still incorporates that. He's not fighting Jake Paul, right? That's not.
We don't know. We don't know.
I'd be interested if that was the case.
That would be interesting.
On there, yeah, a little bit. I am a big boxing fan, so I think this is fun. On there, it depends on that. I don't know if you saw too though this week. I don't know if it was in this. He kind of came out and talked about the Vince and the Triple H reigns, kind of creatively, and said he was more of a fan of the Vince McMahon era because that's where he got his world championships from. He has kind of pushed a little bit more, and he said with Triple H he kind of was just lost. So I think he's done with the WWE, and it's why he's gonna go make his money boxing here. But yeah, I think it's always fun. I might not also buy it, but I'll watch it, somewhere, or piggyback off of it or something like that, or see the highlights
to see what happens.
Yeah, because it's always fun because he is a legitimate, like as you said, 15-2 record, very impressive. He's a legitimate fighter, so I think he's got a chance, like a Brock Lesnar, not so much like a CM Punk, who I think was like 0-3 when he tried to go into the MMA or something like that. So with Bobby, he can actually make a good career out of it.
Well, and it's interesting too. I don't think he's aged since maybe the ECW days.
No,
it doesn't seem to. And if he does box, I hope he has his headband because I tie that in. I don't know if he will.
That's funny because he didn't used to wear a headband until the second run, right? Till he came back,
I think so.
That threw me off when he first came back and he had a headband. But I think that's what he did in TNA, right? I think when he was there, he adapted the headband and all that stuff. But yeah, man, talk about those ECW days. That was fun. He was carrying that brand, and great time to be alive, and a wrestling fan from like 2005 to 2008, 9. That was a great time. So
well, and it is interesting too, because you remember he has fallen off completely creatively. They've tried to tie him in with the Street Profits. They never seemed like they necessarily had a vision or an idea of where that was going. And the Street Profits went from like a pretty good tag team to losing every other week with Bobby for some reason. You would think they would just push him to the stars, but they didn't necessarily do that. Of course, his faction with MVP was definitely something that had some legs to it. But he also was, supposed to face Bray Wyatt at WrestleMania, and that, of course, never happened. And I just don't know. That felt like it was kind of being, thrown together as many feuds do. I'm not saying, but I just didn't feel like there was too much heat behind it. And then he just never kind of reappeared into their any big or long-term plans. So it'll kind of be interesting to see there. I definitely don't think, even if it's the last we've seen of Bobby Lashley for now, it won't be the last we see of Bobby Lashley in WWE at some point. All right, let's jump into it from Weekly Wrestling here. Let's go ahead and start with Raw, and we'll go back to SmackDown to wrap up the show. So as we were talking about with Raw, which is fresh on our minds just from last night, Rhea Ripley opened the show and Kaiser calls out and gives kind of her feelings, which I think they did a good job in storyline to kind of to give her emotions out there. Liv and Dominic show up at the top of the stairs, so they're at a distance. They're able to kind of have their back and forth. There's a couple PG-13, I suppose, quotes in there between the two as they're going back and forth. And then eventually Rhea Ripley said, "You gave us time to find you." And so that is where Damian Priest shows up. You have a brawl with Damian Priest and Dominic Mysterio chasing all the way up and down the stairs. Rhea Ripley goes up and finds Liv, and they start brawling. And then at the very end of this, Rhea Ripley has a chance to get her comeuppance to hit her finisher on Dominic. He gets saved by Liv, similar to the fact that Liv saved her last time, and they set up a little bit of a match later in Bash in Berlin, which will be Rhea Ripley and Damian Priest, the Terror Twins, against Dom and Liv. So very intriguing. This is the way, I think, to book this breakup. I mean, I think this was what everybody's still waiting for, wanting to see. But it is interesting as Damian Priest and Rhea Ripley go from heelish group that's been kind of floating, walking the line. I think as champions, Rhea Ripley and Damian Priest were semi-face, but kind of bad guy attitude.
Yeah.
But now they're completely face. And so this is kind of where you see, can you sell? This is the big part, especially for Damian Priest, to see, can you carry as your own wrestler, not necessarily tied to just the Judgment Day, the group as a whole, but also for Rhea Ripley, who is definitely over. We talk about how great she is altogether. One of the top wrestlers, I think, just with all the storylines and the interests of the last couple of years, you got to put her as one of the top of the business now. But I thought it was interesting to see the crowd reaction and how she kind of carried that promo. A lot of these people are really good, right, at what they do, but there's always a little bit that could have improvement. What did you feel about them? Are they carrying as single stars for you?
I think so. We talked a little bit about it before the show. I think they're doing a great job because you can feel the fans really getting behind Damian Priest. On this, we talked about his reign was maybe a little stale. It didn't feel great. This is perfect for him. He looks great. Those choke slams he's delivering, those are massive. He is getting up there. There's a good mix of comedy with, the Dom and the Liv thing going on there. You said there's some improvement. I think all of them need to maybe improve a little bit on the mic, because it is a good segment. I really liked it. But just kind of what they were trying to deliver, what they were saying, Rhea,
wasn't always getting the major reaction.
No, it wasn't. And you said PG-13. I would say it was past that. I mean, what they were saying, they're really getting ready for Netflix on here. But I think it's great, and I love the essentially the mixed tag team they're gonna have. The Bash of Berlin. I'm curious because they're not really allowing them to get either Dom or Liv. They're not really fighting much. So I'm curious to see how they're incorporated, if they really will let these two or these four really go at it, or, if there's going to be a lot of shenanigans and whatnot on there. But I'll tell you what, I'm really behind the Terror Twins right now. I think this is fantastic. I think the Judgment Day is doing a good job. Call me crazy, but both sides are valid. We talked about it last week that, Finn Balor had a great reason for turning on Damian Priest, and Dom was honest. He said, hey, one making him a man, all that's weird.
Yeah.
All that stuff. But, a big part is, beating his dad, because Liv was the reason. And then Rhea came out and said, I wanted you to do it yourself. So some really good storytelling here. A lot of times you look at one side, you're like, that doesn't make sense. This doesn't make sense. I think from both sides, they have their points on what they want to do. But I'll say this once again, poor Carlito and JD McDonough. They're just there to take the pins, get
especially JD. He can't get over that spot.
Dude, and then he sacrifices himself, because they had Finn in there and he was about to deliver a massive kick, and JD just comes in and just takes that thing. That was massive there. And oh man, I really just wanted to see either Finn or Damian take the Riptide, and of course they don't let us see it that just yet. But I think it's fun. I'm invested. I think seeing the reactions online from everyone else, I think everyone else is invested. They're doing a great job with this. I like kind of the slow burn, the tease. It makes us want more, because like I said, I want this to now be kind of like an hour segment of Raw. Just kind of see what's going on there. So yeah, it's great, and it's good for Rhea and Damian, as you said, to kind of just prove they can do it. The two of them, essentially themselves, opposed to being, with the group.
Well, and I think too, I mean, it really is fascinating how they do it, but I think they've done a good job. One, for what you're kind of pointing out, what I think they've been doing a really good job with Drew McIntyre over the last couple of years, which is, he's a heel, but he makes some sense. Mm-hmm. And I think there's some sense made by the Judgment Day as well. But I think they are doing a good job of slow burning this too, because this is, again, one of the hottest factions we've seen in wrestling in quite some time. You don't need to just get a match out of the way for SummerSlam and then, move on to the next topic. I think very clearly this matchup that we're going to have at Bash in Berlin is going to be interrupted by Finn Balor, backstabber Balor, as he's setting himself up. So it allows you to kind of breathe and enjoy it rather than, just really critique every small part about it. Also, just I don't know if I'm for it or against it. But Dominic, of course, gets the booze for anything he has to say against Ray, the little guy that is forever a face. but I just think that's funny that he says that he will lean into the tendies that that Liv gets him, which I don't know how old. I know that I think the whole idea behind Dominic is that we remember him as a kid, so we just think he's a kid. Right? I mean, isn't he like mid-20s or something?
Yeah, like 26 or 27. He's not that much younger than us.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, yeah, their kind of whole segment was hilarious on that. You know, I love the booze they're doing for him, but at the same time, there are times I want to hear what he has to say, you know, and
tough.
they just don't let you. And I think even Rhea last night was like, let him talk, you know, let him say this. But I'll tell you what, it's all fun and everything, but man, when Liv and Dom are talking, you know, defending themselves, I cringe, man. It's rough, you know, the daddy, you know, the explaining things like we said, it was very raunchy last night. You know, we talk about it. That's maybe a segment you don't want to come into if you're not a WWE fan, because you're going to just be like, this is what they're hyping up. This is what they're talking about. And we're like, yeah, you know, but you got to look at the rest of the story there. But it's great. It's funny, you know. I do follow them all on social media and everything. And Dom was posting the chicken nuggets. You know, he had the big one. He had the cowboy hat. Oh, those chicken nuggets, man, they're great. But yeah that's hilarious.
Yeah, it is. But I mean, I think, you know, this is a bit of a risk because I mean, you could call it from a mile away, right? At some point, Dominic was going to turn on Rhea, because it just, you know, both storyline and altogether just makes too much sense, and, you know, print some money. But they've been such a good combo, you know, together over, you know, the last 2 years again, that it is interesting to kind of let Rhea get away from that when that pairing was so over to begin with. But again, you can't just hold on to it. Sometimes strike when the iron's hot, and that's what they're doing there. This week we did not get a match from Bo Dallas and the Wyatt Six. Instead, we just got a video. They didn't have to present it. They didn't have to come out in the smoke and give it to Pat McAfee, which I think is an improvement, or to Michael Cole, I should say. Usually gets them, I suppose. But yeah, I mean, what did you think about the Wyatt Six video? We usually save this for the end because they usually have been closing down some things. But yeah, I mean, I thought it was a pretty good job. And again, it's completely. I've said this about the Wyatt Six that I love is that it is all in honor of Bray. It's not a slight nod to Bray. It's not like look for the Easter egg here and there that's a reference to Bray. It's directly there toward him, and that's what makes you wonder what the ceiling is of the Wyatt Six, because as wrestlers alone, and as guys that, you know, dress up like they should be working at Spirit Halloween or something, it's kind of silly to think that they're going to make it. But when you consider the Bray Wyatt connection, it only feels right for them at some point to be a primary storyline in WWE. And they've kind of gone from, you know, their debut or their initial, you know, backstage deal. I think they've cooled off quite a bit, even though they just debuted in ring. But the fact that they're so close to Bray Wyatt has kept me intrigued.
Yeah, and I think they're going to have the ability to do that for a while, you know, because, you know, Bo Dallas is his biological brother, not, you know, Kane Undertaker situations. Like, they're really brothers.
Like Bubba Ray and Devon?
Yeah. You know, so I think they can kind of run off of this, you know, where kind of like Cody with his dad, you know, let's look at that for an instance.
Yeah.
Keeps bringing him into feud, you know, this and that. So I think they can have the Fiend, you know, Bray Wyatt, be a part of their storyline, you know, doing it for him. You know, essentially they could run off of that for pretty much their whole run, you know, and like you said, it can keep you interested, you know, fans interested on there. And I can see where they really cooled down on it, because they need to keep them fresh, you know, keep them, I think, in the ring, you know, more matches every week. Maybe not Bo, you know, maybe keep him guarded, you know, kind of like they did with the Fiend until, you know, they ruined that. But, you know, they can do things there. You know, and like you said, we're a fan of the horror, you know, I know there's a lot of people that probably are not going to be with it, but I liked it. You know, I thought it was a good little segment, you know, to have on there. It was maybe 5 minutes, you know, of him talking, you know, doing things like that. A little interesting. And I think Bo is just completely committed to this. I think, you know, he's doing a really good job with it. I was a little skeptical at first, but I think he's fallen into the role and doing a great job.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be tough. I think, you know, naturally his brother's just better at doing
Yeah.
that sort of thing. So Bo's kind of trying to have to play Bray Wyatt. And again, I think he's doing solid. It's tough to do in front of a live audience. His times he's been able to do it. It's hard for me to see Bo Dallas and think top of the card. I don't care what type of mask he has on, because the Bo Leave thing just didn't go anywhere. And then when he was, I thought again, I think his best role still to this day, and I suppose this is probably taken over it. But when he was one of Mrs. cronies, yeah. So I don't know. It's just hard to see him as a put at the top of the card, even if he has a mask on or not. So, but it is what it is. All right, let's take a quick break. We got more Raw and SmackDown to talk about. Our WWE Weekend Review show, Nuclear Heat, will return here on 93.7 The Ticket after this break.
Stevens & Smith Construction is a full-service, employee-owned concrete company that specializes in residential and commercial foundations and flat work. They've been a leader in the concrete industry since 1971, with nearly 250 employees combining for more than 2,000 years of service. With locations in Lincoln, Omaha, and Kansas City, they're united in quality, integrity, and professionalism to create excellence in construction. Learn more today at stevensandsmith.com.
Announcing Acres' end of summer sales event. Acres has dropped its prices on select late model John Deere tractors, combines, and corn heads. Act now and upgrade your equipment before harvest season. Trade in your old equipment today and get unbelievable discounts that could save you over $100,000. With great financing options and our A-plus support, there's no better time to buy. Visit your local Acres store or see the huge savings at acres.com. That's AKRS.com to see the best prices in the nation.
Ticket listeners know a dream team when they see one. At Applied Connective, we've been in the game for 20 years and have developed a team of world-class leaders in all things IT. From cybersecurity and Microsoft products to physical security, audio-video, infrastructure, business phone systems, and anything in between. Head to our website to check out real reviews and testimonials and sign up for a free tech consultation right now at appliedconnective.com.
This is former Husker and NFL linebacker Jay Foreman. For years, I've suffered from degenerative problems in both of my ankles, but thanks to a thorough and thought-out plan provided by Advanced Medical Imaging, I was able to get my life back with the least amount of pain as possible. While working through multiple options, the team of physicians at Advanced Medical Imaging were there to answer any questions I had. If you're experiencing any pain at all and want to get your life back, go to amimaging.com or give them a call at 402-484-6677. Advanced Medical Imaging, located at 7601 Pioneers Boulevard.
Big box stores are tempting for buying equipment for your high schooler in sports or for yourself in your sports leisures. But buying new is awfully expensive. Why not go somewhere with new and used options? Play It Again Sports has quality, slightly to gently used equipment, and 50% of their inventory is actually new equipment. And it's more than baseball, softball, and golf. They also have equipment for disc golf, fitness, hockey, and more. Plus, they're always buying products. Bring your gear you're done with and get trade money on the spot. Play It Again Sports at 48th and Vine.
Ready to add a dash of Southern flavor to your week? At Wings and Rings, their brand new Southern fried wings have arrived for a limited time. Indulge in the irresistible goodness of large, traditional bone-in wings coated in a crispy beer batter and fried to perfection. Try them with hot honey or any other sauces. And for those busy summer days coming up, look no further than their Southern Fried Wings Family Bundle. Wings and Rings, 2 Lincoln locations on O Street or Village Lane.
Hey Husker Nation, this is Todd Euler, 2-time national champion, here to talk to you about Window World Lincoln. At Window World, we specialize in replacement windows, doors, siding, and roofing. Whether you're looking to enhance the beauty of your home or increase its energy efficiency, we've got you covered. And here's the best part. We offer the best for less. Our team is dedicated to providing top quality products and exceptional service at affordable prices. We want to earn your business and make your home improvement dreams a reality. So why wait? Contact Window World Lincoln today at 464-7313 or visit our website at WindowWorldLincoln.com. Window World Lincoln, where quality meets affordability.
Back to Nuclear Heat with your host, Jake Bakovan, on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Talking a little bit of pro wrestling here with you on a Tuesday night. It is Nuclear Heat on 93.7 The Ticket. We do it every Tuesday night If you are a pro wrestling fan, we encourage you to try to find us. Check us out at theticketfm.com. You can find us on YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, of course, Allo, all of our streaming services here at 93.7 The Ticket. We are going through our weeklies of Raw and SmackDown. We got through a few matches there on Raw. We'll pick up there. Of course, this fresh on our minds from last night before we finish out the show with SmackDown. I'm Jake Bachman. He is Augie Pena. And Augie, will bring you in on this. The next segment that we hadn't talked about here is Alpha Academy against American Made. It's kind of interesting because the White Six we had just kind of talked about had their video before this. So it made you kind of think maybe they're still after American Made. But their leader was checking out the Olympics. So Chad Gable, they had a kind of a little promo there with him. And I guess maybe for a week you're supposed to forget that the White Six is going after them, because this Alpha Academy American Made match was very much about the wrestling until Ivy Nile turns on Maxine, which they kind of set up throughout the night, which allows American Made to get the pin and the win. Tozawa got some wrestling in. He did have a botch there as he was driving through the ropes, but was able to get up. I always like to see, I don't know how much that guy weighs, 120 pounds maybe, soaking wet it looks like, but I always like to see the little guy out there. Are you still interested in this feud? Does it need the Wyatt Six?
I don't think it really needs the Wyatt. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I'm kind of intrigued because they put on a heck of a match. I mean, that was a good match. There was some high flying. Otis got involved, obviously, in there, but he had some good stuff. American Made, I think they're the Creed brothers, right?
Yeah,
what they go by after that. I think they're, they fit in perfectly with Chad Gable, whereas with the Alpha Academy, it didn't really, it's like a comedy act, right. Like they pieces that don't fit, but it's working. American Made, I mean, that's perfect for, for Chad Gable there. And then to sprinkle in, Otis was it was the NXT North American champ, right? That came to the sideline, kind of distracted Otis a little bit. They talked about, I think Otis is going to challenge him for that title or something like that. So that was,
that's interesting.
A little side quest for Otis there, while they have this going. And then the whole Ivy Nile and Maxine thing, that's just different, that you got to give them something to do. Maxine, I don't know when's the last time she even wrestled. She's just kind of there.
She's pretty green when she does.
Yeah, very, very green on that. But I don't. It's fun. You don't know when the White Six are going to attack him. We talked about it. They're very mid cardish right now. They could keep doing it. I thought that Chad Gable, he's like, I had to go to Paris to clear my mind, to get away from the Wyatt Six and that stuff. I thought that was great. So I think this is some decent storytelling here. You don't necessarily need the Wyatt Six, but it does give that horror of, hey, maybe Chad and American Made are going to feel good, let their guard down, and then boom, get dragged under the ring or something like that.
Yeah, and I mean, if I just kind of look at the future for all these people that are in play, I think it's good for Ivy Nile, who gets the heel turn. She's kind of got the bulldog persona, but as a good guy, I guess that just doesn't really, it hasn't really led anywhere for Ivy Nile. So I think this at least gives her something. Alpha Academy, I still wonder, because American Made, fine enough name, I don't care. But Alpha Academy at least was kind of Chad Gable's, there was always a tie to that with American Alpha and all that. And so I thought that they probably should have kept that name and just went with it. And I think the Creed brothers still would have made a lot of sense. Like, I'm moving up from my number one guy to some real legit athletes, and we'll see kind of what happens there. Because Alpha Academy, I think, is on their last couple. I mean, after this feud, what do you think's next for Alpha Academy? I can't imagine too much TV time.
I have no idea, but I'll tell you what, Akira Tozawa has been surviving by a tightrope, man. He goes from being a ninja, 24/7 champ, he just keeps surviving, and I mean, for what it's worth, he does a great job. He's a great comedy act and good in the ring, but I have no idea. Otis, they gave Otis to Chad Gable to try to do something, and we talked about it with Maxine. I hate to say this, but it's her looks. That's the thing keeping her around, because she is not good in the ring. And even when she talks, it's just not, it seems very, very scripted, not professional there. So I agree with you. I have no idea what is going on next with them after this feud. So,
yeah. Next up on Raw, the number one contenders match for Alba Fire and Isla Dawn's tag team championships. It came down to Damage Control. Of course, now down a member. against Shayna Baszler and Zoe Stark. And they've got a new name that I didn't write down. I can't remember it.
It is
Fusion,
the perfection fusion or something like that. It is the worst name I think I've heard for a tag team.
It wasn't great. I think they were just better off just Shayna Baszler and Zoe Stark. Just say the names as you go on there. But it is what it is. Ultimately, Damage Control, of course, like we said, down a member. So Kairi Sane and Io Sky battling it out. And it again, the feud is interesting in that I don't know if necessarily either is overly a face right now. So you're kind of in that middle ground. There's a little bit of action outside. Alba Fire and Isla Dawn were watching from ringside. They got brought into it, and then they go in there and in that match. So again, I think you're kind of setting up long-term for obviously the tag team championships, but altogether it seems to be these 3-person units, whether it's Raw on SmackDown. We can kind of bring in what happened on SmackDown where Jade Cargill beat Alba Fire, and then Blair Davenport and Naomi end up showing up at the end for a post-match brawl. So Alba Fire now and Davenport and Naomi and Cargill and so it's just everybody's kind of got these 3 contenders, and now Damage Control, who had them, maybe is going to have to wait on Asuka to come back because they're down to 2 in real life because of Dakota Kai's real life injury. So I don't know exactly where all this is going. It's kind of crossing over from SmackDown to Raw. There seem to be, there's tag team champions there in Alba Fire and Isla Dawn that quite honestly are the least proven of all the, these kind of tag teams with, 3-man group, which is 3. We see, the 3 team belts on AEW. Of course, they haven't done that in WWE, but I don't know. I don't know where it's all going, and I don't know if it's necessarily helping anybody involved.
Yeah, it looks like you said like it's going to be a how would you call this a fatal 4-way tag team match, right? Because Jay, like you said, Jade, Bianca, and then these 3. I was very confused when they interrupted the number 1 contenders match. Like I was like, what are you like what's the plan here? But I mean, you got to give them something to work with here, and the name is the Pure Fusion Collective.
Pure Fusion Collective. Well, sounds like they should be raising money for a college football team somewhere or
something like that, or
the collective part, the Pure Fusion. I'm not sure.
I mean, I have no idea where they came with that name, but it was weird. Yeah, and like you said, Alba Fire and Isla Dawn, I think they've been okay as heels, but I don't think anybody even knew they were challenging for the tag team champs until like 30 minutes before their match, where I mean, I know they won number 1 contenders and all that, but I didn't really know of that. So it's a little bit interesting here. And I think even didn't they call Damage Control Io Sky and Kairi Sane? I think they called them something else too.
Well, they were going back to when they were just tag team partners, and they were the something Pirates, but
that confused me too, because they mentioned their name and I was like, who are they talking about, on there? So a lot of things happening. And like you said, they got to do something because they're just kind of throwing a lot of people into these tag team matches. So as you mentioned, if one of these teams win, like let's say Sonya Deville's team win, who are the champs? Like do they change? What do they do there?
Yeah.
It's I don't know. WWE's kind of putting themselves in a bind here with that, but
and they've kind of got just tag teams all together. Like the Bloodline is kind of that way, right? Is Jacob Fatu, if he's out, does Tama Tonga and Tonga Loa just pick it up? Judgment Day could be the same way. I mean, they haven't leaned into that, right? I mean, it's been very clear that it's been Finn Balor and JD McDonough, but one of them goes down. I mean, every other thing involved in tag teams right now in WWE seems to be kind of a team collective. Now we'll see. Alba Fire and Isla Dawn aren't necessarily, Blair Davenport's not part of their group, but it's just very strange. Anyways, we've talked probably too long about it to see where that kind of is going. Big segment coming up there with Randy Orton addressing Gunther. Gunther comes out and they kind of trade back barbs back and forth. Gunther basically calls out Randy Orton's family. And just before we get to the fisticuffs, I think, is when we have a distraction. The music hits and McIntyre comes out, Drew McIntyre, which was maybe a bit of a surprise. Gunther has been saying all along he will not be surprised by an RK out of nowhere. Randy Orton hits an RK out of nowhere on Gunther. And then CM Punk shows up and attacks Drew McIntyre as he's coming down. He wants to claim his shot at a championship because Randy Orton just came over from SmackDown, championship opportunity, I should say. And then he uses CM Punk, who had lost to McIntyre at SummerSlam, uses a belt that McIntyre took. He was going to use himself to hit McIntyre away, which at times is kind of silly. I mean, that's not only a grown man, but a giant grown man that would clearly just fight off a belt. I mean, we all know a belt is not too damaging. It can hurt, don't get me wrong. But even if I'm getting hit by a belt, I will stop the person who is hitting me instead of running away or slowly walking away. So I don't know. And the other thing is, I think this did great for Randy Orton and Gunther. It kind of helped build up that. I don't know if they can get me back into CM Punk McIntyre. I was really hoping that we were done with that. They spent a lot of time on it already. They've sacrificed. I use the word sacrifice, but they've given up a lot of creative possibilities for this feud. And are we supposed to want CM Punk to still get Drew McIntyre? Because I'd rather him forget about Drew McIntyre at this point.
Yeah. I mean, one is confusing because it felt like they used the Randy Gunther to keep that that feud alive. I mean, they had to, because like you said, it lost some fire because they decided to go with Seth Rollins. They didn't let these guys duke it out. Essentially is it. And I think that's what we all wanted. And like you said, I mean, right now, CM Punk's the only one that has a reason to go after McIntyre because McIntyre got his revenge. He won. I would think if you were going to make this a long story, it would have been CM Punk wins and McIntyre's still out for revenge. Because he's the one that screwed him over. What has Drew McIntyre done other than stolen that bracelet that keeps getting involved? That has AJ Lee and his dog Lenny. I think it's Lenny's name.
It doesn't matter. It's a dog.
I think it's Fred. Lenny.
And CM Punk has his dog's face on his shirt now.
And it's like you said, it's just so hard. They had such a great storyline that they had been building for months and months and months. They give us a version of it. We don't like it, and now they're just kind of they're just going with it, and it's almost like a comedy act at this point. I know they were doing the comedy bit because CM Punk couldn't wrestle. They're continuing it, and I kind of agree with you. It's a little stale, but I feel like if two people can kind of get it back, kind of make it serious again, I think it's CM Punk and Drew McIntyre, because McIntyre's shown for the last year he can be kind of a main eventer, and we all know CM Punk's always had that in his bag.
Yeah, I think McIntyre has been spectacular over the last year and a half, 2 years. CM Punk is, this just all together feels like we've been waiting 10 years. I've never seen somebody leave the company and 5 years later, the crowd chant his name on a weekly basis. And that was the case with CM Punk. He spent all this time to have his return, and it's just kind of feels like they're not optimizing CM Punk. But it kind of is what it is at this point. They're going to continue it. I should have saw it coming with, of course, the Seth angle last week with Bronson Reed, who, by the way, also was had another opportunity to do Tsunami City, and he took it this week on Raw. Bronson Reed ended up going against The Miz. This because R-Truth set up a match with The Miz and so who was he trying to get?
He thought it was an Intercontinental Championship match against Braun Breaker.
That's right, he did. And instead it was Bronson Reed. Bronson Reed starts doing Tsunami City type of stuff, and that's not even a term they use. That's just what I call it, because it is his tsunami that absolutely crushed Seth Rollins. And again, I can't have enough fun watching this play out. I think other people probably think it's too silly and dumb. But Bronson Reed basically did to R-Truth what he did to Seth Rollins the week before. Management's out there trying to stop him. But I think it was 6 tsunamis. I don't know exactly. I think that was the math they were doing against Seth. He probably got close to that again here on a combination between The Miz and R-Truth. R-Truth took the most of them. I forget how much you loved Tsunami City episode 1. What do you think about episode 2?
It's fine, but and they even did like that Sports Center science thing. They were talking about it like he got hit with this much force, this much weight, so he took this and this, and I was like, that's a little different. I can appreciate how they're building up Bronson Reed, but they kind of did the same thing with Solo Sikoa. Now they're trying to make him this big bad guy, this serious guy. But when was the last aside from the Andre the Giant,
That's right. Yes.
Battle Royale,
Who could
which
forget?
he won, which I think would probably be the last time you could say that he won a match, because he was always that third guy, inserted into matches for no reason to take the pin. I mean, he's got the build. He's like 6 foot, 350 pounds, and he can move like this. That's something special. On there, I thought it was good. It was a good segment. The Miz and R-Truth are comedy. They're gold when they do that. They even inserted Randy Orton a little bit into it, and Bronson Reed, he's impressing me in the ring. They if they keep doing this, give him a meaningful feud. Maybe Seth when he does come back from his injury or whatever they're doing for him. Maybe they continue it and give him a little bit of life with that. But they got something going with Bronson.
Yeah, they certainly do. I'm excited for it. It's at least something for him. Like I said, loved what he was able to do. I think he's a pretty good promo. I just like Bronson Reed altogether. But he's just kind of got stuck, like you said, kind of just at his spot in the card. Like good live performer, gets the crowd over with the tsunami. People like to see it. But just his character just kind of got lost. So it's good that they've got him at least doing something. Then we go to the main event of the evening. Best 2 out of 3 falls for the Intercontinental Championship between Sami Zayn and Braun Breaker. Before the match, Sami is met in backstage with Jey Uso, who wants to go after the tag titles with Sami. So kind of lets you know where they're going there before the match. Don't necessarily like when they do that because now Sami's thinking about tag team titles right before his Intercontinental title. And it kind of tips their hand. That being said, they did give Sami the first pin. Braun Breaker ends up winning this. A couple spears is too much for Sami. He gets the last 2 pins and retains the Intercontinental Championship. Good enough, I think. This is round 3, right? You have to have the tiebreaker between the two. It doesn't need to go to another premium live event. It's good. Good work for a main event on Raw. Gives Braun Breaker that main event opportunity. And clearly, we've already set Sami Zayn on his own path. My only complaint would be now I have to count out the total times of number of pins that Sami has against Breaker. Like, it's just one of those things that I believe more often than not, don't pin your champion.
Yeah.
And they've been doing this too much over the last couple of years. I think Roman Reigns, who had the longest run of not getting pinned as a singles champion, got pinned by Jey Uso. Didn't necessarily like it. It was huge for the moment, but I don't think long term that necessarily works out too well. Cody Rhodes gets pinned by Solo Sikoa. Tries to build him up. I think they're still trying to use that rub, to use that as to build Solo Sikoa up. Hasn't really done it for me. I think brought Cody down. Alba Fire gets pinned on SmackDown. We just mentioned it, and now here, even in a win, you tag Braun Breaker. I know this is all set up and so it's kind of silly to really dive into it, but just in my mind, if you have champions, build champions.
Yep.
You can't have too many of them taking pins. So that's what I didn't like. I would have not done a 2 out of 3s falls match. I would have just had it straight up. Braun beats Sami Zayn, and then they both split, and who won the feud.
Yeah, and I've mentioned it. They had an opportunity to kind of have a Goldberg type run with Braun Breaker. He was doing it. They were giving him those squash matches, making him this beast, and then Sami gets him clean, and then Sami gets him here. So that's 2 pins he's taken. In his 5 months on the roster. I mean, I know that's not a lot, but they had an opportunity to really build him up here, and I agree with you there. I thought this was a good match. It was fun. It was entertaining, but after Sami got that first pin, it's like the next 2 just came really fast, on there. And like you said, they foreshadowed that Sami had no chance really of winning because he was moving on from there. And now, Braun gets a chance to show us what he's made of, to show us if they're pushing him too soon or if they, made the right move there. Cause he's going to have to go and feud someone else with this Intercontinental Championship. And hopefully he doesn't get pinned from there. So I agree with you. Because, and also you got to remember, JD McDonough is a champ too. And,
battering ram.
Dude, nobody is safe. I think Gunther possibly is probably the only one that's going to be safe from taking a pin. And who knows, they might give Randy, a win. So I don't know. I agree with you there. They're kind of showing they don't have any like Super Cenas, at the moment. And I think we're so used to seeing that. And now seeing a champion get pinned, from time to time just really, takes, makes the second guess. Oh, should they even be the champs?
I guess maybe it does build up Gunther, to your point. Maybe, if he's the lone one that's not taking pins, then he's got something to brag about there. But let's take a quick break. We got another segment coming up. We will rewind time and talk about SmackDown, all the storylines going on there. Coming up next year on Nuclear Heat on 93.7 The Ticket.
As a proud member of the Roofing and Solar Reform Alliance, Coalition Restoration stands out by providing thorough property assessments, personalized customer service, and top-notch craftsmanship. With years of experience in the industry, Coalition Restoration has built a notable reputation for having a team filled with skilled professionals and possessing the expertise to handle any roofing project, big or small. Visit their website today for a free roof assessment at www.coalitionrestoration.com or give them a call at 402-607-8186. Your business runs like a well-oiled machine. It's important that your actual machines do too. Stern is here to make sure you don't have to worry about that. They provide solutions for heavy equipment and automotive fuels, lubricants, and equipment guard options. And with Stern's commitment to customer service for the past 40 years, you know you have a partner to help support your operations for years to come. Contact Roger at Stern Company by calling 1-800-477-2744 or visit them online at stern.co. Stern Company, where problems meet solvers.
Rain, snow, or shine, John Henry's is here to keep your home's plumbing systems working properly no matter what kind of weather Nebraska throws at us. From unclogging toilets and drains to installing new water heaters and water treatment systems, John Henry's is your plumbing expert in the Lincoln and Omaha communities. Visit us at calljh.com or call John Henry's.
435-5555. John Henry's Plumbing, Heating and Air,
and Electrical.
Back to Nuclear Heat with your host, Jake Bakoven, on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
We are back here on Nuclear Heat to talk a little bit of SmackDown here before we wrap up the show here on Nuclear Heat on 93.7 The Ticket. So a few things went down on SmackDown that we won't necessarily get to, but I do just want to give an idea of what was going on there. So pretty much they set up a Final Four, if you will, to go after the Bloodlines tag team titles. The Street Profits defeated A-Town Down Under. DIY beats Pretty Deadly. Sets up DIY and Street Profits. Winner gets the Bloodline. Do you have a preference between those two quickly of a feud with the Bloodline?
Probably DIY.
Yeah.
Just because I was impressed with, the things they did in the ring. So.
Yeah, sure. LA Knight also awaits the winner of Santos Escobar and Andrade. Plenty of interference from this match from Baron Corbin and Apollo Crews to Carmelo Hayes, but ultimately Santos Escobar does get the win. Kind of surprising to me because they had been positioning Andrade pretty well. I think, despite the fact he's not a heel, I think that would be better for LA Knight, more of a little bit more up the card. But Santos Escobar, I think, will work out for LA Knight there. And then the major storylines: Cody Rhodes comes out to open SmackDown. He fends off the Bloodline, and then Kevin Owens comes out to help him, and he ultimately wants to give Kevin Owens a title shot, which is very interesting as both of them are obviously faces, and KO can do a great heel turn at some point if they need him to. But the storytelling was just interesting the way they did it. And if you're going to have KO and Cody Rhodes, I would have much rather had a lot of heat on KO for turning heel. Maybe we'll still see that, but I'm not really sure. Cody Rhodes, KO, I think if done right can be great. I just don't know if it's off to the right foot here.
Yeah, and like you said, the storytelling on this was wrong. KO declining it, saying he didn't deserve it. Really being a babyface, if there's a heel turn coming, that response doesn't make sense. Like you said, it's going to probably be a good match there. Not too excited about it. Just because they have 3 weeks, till the first match to do something. And I just don't think that's enough time to turn KO and legitimately heel and get some heat behind him.
Yeah, we'll see. I always love KO, particularly as a heel. And that was the kind of the thing with Randy Orton, too, as they were the good guys, the good guy friends of Cody Rhodes. Is like at any time these guys can turn. And if they kind of break up that little, friendship without having done it, I think that's somewhat of a miss because that seems like obvious writing to kind of lead up to it. But they found something else for Randy Orton to do. I think we'll see Kevin Owens heel turn, and I love heel Kevin Owens. So if nothing else, we'll get heel Kevin Owens back. And then the other big news of SmackDown, obviously, Solo Sikoa comes out, calls out Roman Reigns. They didn't do too much as far as progressing the storyline. It was very predictable what was going to happen, but it was just what it needed to be. Roman Reigns coming out, beating up Tama Tonga and Tonga Loa. Then they get the upper hand for a second, and then he beats up Tama Tonga and Tonga Loa again as Solo Sikoa gets away. But like I said, it's not overcomplicated. I was kind of sitting there watching, waiting for something to happen that would be unexpected, but they don't necessarily need that. Right here in this segment, you just need Roman Reigns to stand tall in his return.
Yep, this is perfect. Like you said, just do that. I talked about it. They released some behind the scenes of SummerSlam. Paul Heyman was there with Roman Reigns, so that's coming, and they're slow burning this as they should. Hey, Reigns is taking everyone out. They haven't really had a him versus solo real conversation. I think they're doing a great job with this. Having Roman here for 5 minutes. I was waiting for Roman the whole SmackDown.
That's right.
I was like, oh man, they're not going to bring. They brought him out, and man, you didn't realize how much Roman Reigns was carrying SmackDown for the last 3 years. So, really appreciate all the time we get him now.
Yeah, fantastic stuff. Again, I think a lot of people really love this. I mean, anything involving Roman Reigns and the bloodline has been really good. We're going to continue to probably have our problems with the fact I just don't see beating Solo Sikoa is expected. It's not a surprise for Roman. So kind of interested in what's next, really interested at how long they're going to kind of draw that out. Obviously, if you get The Rock back in, we're fascinated, right? And maybe 100%. that's what it's kind of leading toward is The Rock and Roman Reigns at WrestleMania, which is maybe what we should have had last year. People would argue it was at least planned that way. The Cody crowd took the Cody crybabies, as The Rock would say, kind of led it the other way. But if it leads there, I'm fine with it, and I think that's where it's leading. I just don't know. I just feel bad for Solo because he's not coming out of this better than he was going into it.
No, 100% he's not. And I mean, hey, Jacob Fatu is hurt. He's hurt. So, he was supposed to be the muscle that kind of brings intrigue. And yeah, we'll see what they do here. And they kind of, the Cody Roman stare, that's still in the background too, if Cody's champ. So they have a lot of opportunities to do stuff here, make this very messy. But hey, I trust them. They did a great job with, the first Bloodline storyline. I call this Bloodline storyline 2.0, with Roman in there. So I trust they're going to do something good, and they're going to keep us on the edge of our seats till WrestleMania.
Well, they're getting a Sammy and Jay getting together as a tag team. Isn't necessarily exciting to me in and of itself, but with all the Bloodline stuff going around, again, I thought Bloodline was at its best with Sammy in it. So maybe they can tie that all back in with The Rock, which would be quite fun. All right, that'll wrap it up for Nuclear Heat this week. Myself, Jake Bachman, my tag team partner, Augie Pena. We'll be back next week to talk more weekly pro wrestling here on 93.7 The Ticket.
Liberty Law Group is committed to the defense of liberty for those accused and the pursuit of justice for those injured. Liberty Law Group's relentless trial attorneys specialize in criminal defense and personal injury law. We believe in treating every client with respect, compassion, and understanding. We know that navigating the legal system is stressful and overwhelming, but Liberty Law Group will carry that burden for you. When you're facing legal issues, make the right call. 877-42-LIBERTY. That's 877-42-LIBERTY.
Ready to score big with your projects? Look no further than Edward Stone, the MVP of natural stone for over 2 decades. Edward Stone is cranking out over 30,000 square feet every week and offers a winning lineup of over 70 quality natural veneer stone selections. Their unbeatable variety and experienced team will ensure your project is a success, whether it's a home renovation or a commercial build. And hey, they're not just about stone. They've got an all-star lineup of fireplaces, cast stone, brick, and much more. Swing by one of their locations in Lincoln or Omaha today and experience the Edward Stone difference, your reliable choice for over 20 years.
Stevens & Smith Construction is a full-service, employee-owned concrete company that specializes in residential and commercial foundations and flat work. They've been a leader in the concrete industry since 1971, with nearly 250 employees combining for more than 2,000 years of service. With locations in Lincoln, Omaha, and Kansas City, they're united in quality, integrity, and professionalism to create excellence in construction. Learn more today at stevensandsmith.com.
Announcing Acres' end of summer sales event. Acres has dropped its prices on select late model John Deere tractors, combines, and corn heads. Act now and upgrade your equipment before harvest season. Trade in your old equipment today and get unbelievable discounts that could save you over $100,000. With great financing options and our A-plus support, there's no better time to buy. Visit your local Acres store or see the huge savings at acres.com. That's AKRS.com to see the best prices in the nation.
Ticket listeners know a dream team when they see one. At Applied Connective, we've been in the game for 20 years and have developed a team of world-class leaders in all things IT. From cybersecurity and Microsoft products to physical security, audio-video, infrastructure, business phone systems, and anything in between. Head to our website to check out real reviews and testimonials and sign up for a free tech consultation right now at appliedconnective.com.